This is section 5.1 of the homework video guide. And for question number 1, I need to complete each statement. So for question number 1a, the formula for the point slope form of a line is, well, this is simply going to be y minus y1 equals to m times x minus x1. So this is the equation of a line where m is the slope, and we're also given the point x1 and y1, and that's called the point slope form of a line. All right, so that's basically a definition of a line there. For question 1b, the equation y equals mx plus b, so when we're given that form, then the point 0, comma b is called the what? Well, whenever the x value is 0, then this term right here, or that letter, is always called the y-intercept. Okay, so whenever x is 0, then we're given the value of the y-intercept. And when we're given this equation, we know that plus b is always the y-intercept. Okay, now when we're given y equals mx plus b again, what is this line called? Well, this is called the slope intercept form of a line. And that's simply because the intercept is b and the slope is m. All right, so that's called the slope intercept form of a line. And for letter D, the standard form of the equation of a line is, well, this is their definition here, where this is simply going to be ax plus by equals to c. So that is the standard form of the equation of a line. Okay, so we have the point slope form of a line, we have the slope intercept form of a line, and now we have the standard form of the equation of a line. So 3 different forms there. And for part E, I'm given the standard form of a line, which is ax plus by equals to c, and I need to identify the slope. Okay, now when you're looking for the slope, remember, when y equals to mx plus b, when you're given that, then we know the slope is simply going to be m. Okay, so if I'm given ax plus by equals to c, my goal is I want to isolate for y here. If I isolate for y, then I can find the slope easily. All right, so let's go ahead and isolate for y here. And in order to do that, my ax term here on the left-hand side, well, it's positive right now. If I move it to the left-hand side, it becomes negative ax, so negative ax. And then the c term is still positive, so that's going to be positive c. Okay, now if I go ahead and isolate for y, because if I isolate for y, remember, then we can find our slope a little bit faster there. And in order for me to isolate for y, I should divide both sides by b here. So let's go ahead and divide both sides by b. And if I do that on the left-hand side, then I can see that the b's cancel off, and I'm given just y equals to. Then I have this negative a and this b, so that's going to be negative a over b. And then the x variable remains is just x, plus, and then I have c over b, which is just simply c over b. Okay, so if I go ahead and match this up now, I have negative a over b, and that matches up with my m, so my slope is going to be negative a over b, right? So my slope is negative a over b. And if I match up my c over b to the slope intercept line here, so that means my y-intercept is c over b. So this is going to be c over b. And that's it for question number 1, some definitions and some formulas and a little bit of algebra there. Okay, for question number 2, I need to find the slope and the y-intercept. And for this particular problem, we should always write the equation of a line in slope-intercept form, which is y equals to mx plus b. And we know that slope is always going to be the m value there, and the y-intercept will be the b value there. All right, so this is basically an algebra exercise here. And the very first thing I would do is I would isolate the y term here, which is negative 2y. And our goal is that we want to isolate for y. All right, once y is isolated, then we can find the slope and the y-intercept a little bit quicker. Okay, so how do I isolate for the y variable here? Well, I have a 3x here. It's positive on the left-hand side, so we need to move it to the other side. And if I do that, if I move the 3x to the other side, then it becomes negative 3x. And then this positive 6 still remains as positive 6 on the right-hand side. All right, our goal is to isolate for this y variable here. So let's go ahead and divide each side by negative 2. And if I divide both sides by negative 2, then this negative 2 and that negative 2 will cancel, giving me just a single y variable. And then I have a negative 3 divided by negative 2, which is simply going to be 3 over 2, and then the x variable remains. And then if I have a plus 6 divided by negative 2, so plus 6 divided by negative 2 is going to be negative 3. All right, so if I do that, my slope is going to be 3 over 2, and my y-intercept is going to be negative 3. All right, so my slope is 3 over 2, and my y-intercept is negative 3. And that's it for 2a. Okay, so for question 2b here, let's go ahead and isolate the y term, which is 3y. And our goal now is to start removing terms here. So let's move the 4x to the other side here. And if I do that, I get 3y equals to negative 4x. And then this 12 is positive, so it remains as positive 12. All right, our goal is to isolate for the y variable. So let's go ahead and divide both sides by 3. All right, if I do that, then the 3's cancel off, giving me a single y on the left-hand side. Negative 4 divided by 3 is simply going to be negative 4/3, so negative 4 over 3x, and then plus 12 divided by 3 is going to be positive 4, right? So 12 divided by 3 is going to be 4. And now my slope is negative 4/3, and my y-intercept is positive 4. So my slope is negative 4/3, and my y-intercept is positive 4. All right, let's move on to the next set of questions here. So same kind of exercise here. Let's go ahead and isolate for the y term here. So let's move the 2x to the right-hand side. So I have negative 5y equals to negative 2x, and then this minus 7 remains as minus 7. And then I can divide both sides by negative 5, divide that by negative 5, and divide that by negative 5. If I do that, the negative 5 here and that negative 5 cancel out, so giving me a single y here on the left-hand side. Negative 2 divided by negative 5 is just 2 over 5x. And then negative 7 divided by negative 5 is positive, right? So a negative divided by a negative number is going to be a positive number here. So I get positive 7 over 5. All right, so my slope is 2/5. And my y-intercept is 7 over 5. Good. Okay, so moving on to letter 2D here. Once again, I want to isolate for the y term here. So let's move the 5x over. So this will be 2y equals to negative 5x. And if you want, you can add the 0 as just plus 0. Then let's divide both sides by 2 because our goal is to isolate for the y variable. If I do that, this 2 and that 2 will cancel off, giving me a single y. All right, so negative 5 over 2 is going to be negative 5 over 2, negative 5 over 2x. And then 0 divided by 2 is going to be just 0, right? Okay, so my slope is negative 5 over 2, and my y-intercept is going to be 0. All right, so that's it for question 2D. All right, for letter 2E now, once again, we want to isolate for the y variable here, so the negative 4y remains, and this x can move to the right-hand side, and that's going to be negative x, right? So negative x and then minus 4. And then we want to divide both sides by negative 4. All right, so once we do that, this negative 4 and that negative 4 will cancel off, giving me a single y. Now over here on the right-hand side, just be careful here. There's a negative sign there and a negative 4 over there, right? So this is really the same thing as negative 1 divided by negative 4. And negative 1 divided by negative 4 is just 1 over 4, right? So 1 over 4x. And then I have negative 4 divided by negative 4, that's going to be positive 1, right? So 4 divided by 4 is 1, and the two negative signs make it positive. All right, so my slope is going to be 1 over 4, and my y-intercept is going to be 1. So my slope is 1 over 4, and my y-intercept is 1. Okay, moving on to letter 2F now. So my y variable needs to be isolated. So let's go ahead and move the 6x to the right-hand side. So that's going to give me negative 6x, and then minus 3 remains the same. Now, when you have a negative sign like that, that's the same thing as a negative 1, right? So what we're doing here is we're dividing both sides by negative 1. All right, if I do that, then this negative 1 and that negative 1 will cancel off, giving you just a y. And then this negative 6 and that negative 1. So negative 6 divided by negative 1 is going to be 6x. And then negative 3 divided by negative 1 is going to be plus 3. So I got 6x plus 3. So my slope is 6 and my y-intercept is 3. So the slope is 6 and the y-intercept is 3. All right, so that's it for question number 2. So a little bit of algebra there. All right, so if I move on to question number 3, we have a few more algebra type problems here. So write the standard form in slope-intercept form. So a very similar exercise. So remember, slope-intercept form is y equals to mx plus b. All right, so this is basically the same question as problem number 2 all over again. So let's do this one a little bit faster now. Our goal is to isolate for y. All right, so bring the 2x over. That's going to be negative 2x and then plus 6, right? And that's it for question 3a. For 3b, let's go ahead and isolate for this y variable there. So this 3x, let's move to the other side. So again, negative y equals to negative 3x, right? And then plus the 4. And then we can divide both sides by negative 1 because that's really a negative 1 there. And then divide that by negative 1 and divide that by negative 1. If I do that, those cancel off, giving you a single y. And then negative 3 divided by negative 1 is going to be positive 3. So positive 3x, and then positive 4 divided by negative 1 is going to be negative 4. So y equals to 3x minus 4.